5 books I recently read that I think you should read. So you're hanging out with me in my backyard while I grill some food. Now here are the 5 books. Right there, if you really need to screenshot them. But we've got Man's Search for Meaning, Attached, and 3 others. But first, let's talk about these. And my philosophy with picking up books is finding books that will change my life and finding books that my mentors recommend. You might already know one of them. I follow Tony Robbins quite a bit. And the book that he recommended is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And this book comes from Viktor Frankl, a man who lived in the camps of Auschwitz, the Jewish internment camps. And the biggest takeaway I got from him is he is a therapist, and he understands a concept known as logotherapy, where someone who practices logotherapy is not going to force you to make a decision. They're going to make you make the decision. So this man noticed that people were dying in the camps if they were missing one thing. It wasn't health, it wasn't strength, it wasn't them eating enough. It was their loss of hope. If you had no hope, if you had no meaning for your suffering and pain, if it was meaningless suffering, that is worse than meaningful suffering. So if you're ever in a hard spot in life, read this book, and that will help you attach some meaning to your life and get through the hard times. Okay? Amazing book. Next book is Attached. And this one is by Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller. So you have heard of the 3 different attachment styles, most likely. Anxious, secure, and avoidant. And we're all might be on that spectrum, but you need to find out if you're anxious, avoidant, or more secure so you can see where you are in the dating pool and who you should or should not date. You also learn that people who are more anxious tend to be more attracted to people who are avoidant, but those are the worst people for you to date. Like, this book breaks it down very easy. It's full of quizzes, and then as you read this book, you'll start to see how your parents' relationships and their attachment styles have crafted yours. Okay, so if you've done a good amount of healing, I would guess you're more in the secure camp with maybe some hints of anxious or avoidant, or even worse, anxious avoidant. But I know I say worse, but that's just your journey. Okay, there's no reason to be ashamed or angry with yourself. It is on a spectrum. I'm trying to find the graph for you. Give me a second. This is why I love books. The visuals. I'm a very visual person. As most of us are. Our brain is mostly wired for visual development. Here we go. Look at that. That is what I'm talking about. Let's continue. We've got a couple more books. And then I'll show you some of my favorite books, just to give you a hint of what the next video is going to be about. The next one is The Power of Now. Okay, so this book, it's breaking down how your reflections on the past and the future steal you of the present. Instead of just focusing on the joy of what we're experiencing now, we let past memories hurt us. We let future woes keep us from being where we're at now. And another thing is just about emotions. There's no such thing as good or bad emotions. It's just they're notifications for what's happening in your life. Okay, let's go to, oh, I love this one. This book I revisit now as a workbook, and I'm building spreadsheets because of this book. Because if you ever want to have a better brand or following or content that just converts as well, you need to read this book. But you might read this book and get no results, and you have no one to blame but yourself for the lack of research, because research takes time. Okay, it takes time, it takes processing, and it takes you testing it. Okay, are you willing to post 50 to 100 to 300 times in the next year to get some data? And the next, and I can revisit Brendan Kane a little bit. But let's look at Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. So the beautiful thing about Tony Robbins is that he, in the past, was being ridiculed by therapists, because he would say, oh, I can fix that in 20 minutes, where they can't even fix that issue that person has in 10 years. And so they'd call him, get him on a podcast, but then start making fun of him, calling him names and things like that, a charlatan, a scammer. So he got all of them in person to meet him, and he showed him that he can do this. And then he worked for the army, the military, all these different camps, all these different people, walks of life. So a chapter I want to share with you from his book. Before I share that chapter, I just want to say, if you want to have more control of your life, your mental state, your emotional state, how you feel, read this book. And I'm going to talk to you about transformational vocabulary. I think that's chapter 12. Where you, instead of saying, I'm angry, say, I'm tinkled. Oh no, even better. Instead of saying, I'm pissed off, say, I'm tinkled. Replace those. Now look at what happens. You might have already started to laugh just thinking about that. And that has already deactivated that circuit in your brain, that neural pathway of existing. Because we are addicted to these states of emotion. We are addicted to being angry. If you know anything about the different levels of consciousness, anger is above shame, guilt, apathy, grief, and fear. So it's no wonder people are addicted to being angry, because it's at a higher level of consciousness, gives them more energy, they feel awake. So that is what's fascinating about transformational vocabulary. And he lists out all these different words that you could use and that you can apply. And then he has another take on habit formation, where if you give the habit, if you want to kill a habit, give it enough time and just don't mess with it. Don't activate that circuit and it'll go away. That habit will go away. But too many of us are addicted to having that happen and not do it. Right? So that's why simple works, but it doesn't work if you don't want to do it. If you're addicted to your neural pathway of eating the foods that kill you, that hurt you, who can help you? No one. You're going to have to hit rock bottom. That's how I see it. So, one method I recommend for people is definitely write in your books. Okay? So right here, I put negative emotions, you should interpret them as calls to action. All right? Page 107, he talks about speed reading, how you need to be a speed reader. Jim Rohn told him, miss a meal, but don't miss your reading. Knowing what to do is not enough. You must do what you know. So, again, you gotta write in your books. Come on. Make it yours. Make it active, not passive. What else from this book? Oh my gosh, so this book brings up myths that many of us believe about our content creation. This is the last thing, then I'll show you some of my favorite books, and then we'll end the video. The Guide to Going Viral talks about myths that people believe about their content. They believe that they've got to spend money to get it in front of people. But the algorithm wants to get your content in front of people if it is good content, if it has good retention, if it keeps people on their app. That's what they're looking for. Another thing is that many people think quantity over quality is the best method. At the start, I would agree. But if you've been posting for over 6 months or a year or years, and you're not hitting the views or the conversions that you want, you need to research more and you need to dial in the quality. So you could do 100 videos at 1,000 views. 100,000 views, good job. Or you could do one video that gets you 200,000 views or 1,000,000 views. All right? And then many of you might have even gotten videos that have made millions of views, but you can't recreate it. And part of the reason might be is because you didn't sit down and research heavily why this video did so well, why this one did so poorly, or how do we recreate this video? What were the fundamentals of human psychology that got this one to do well? That is what this book talks about. And yeah, those are some of my most recent books. Let me know in the comments if you've read them. What do you think? What books would you also recommend? Thanks for listening.